today is the Ascension Day. This is a very, very special Shabbat. So it's a Shabbat, it's the Ascension Day, it's also the third new moon day, and it is the sixth Shabbat of the counting of the Omar. So it's a very special day today. Last night on Erev Shabbat, our family and some friends went up and we did a little hike took a picnic lunch and hiked up a little hill in our area so we could get a real nice view out over the lake and stuff. And we discussed what the Ascension was all about. And so today I am going to do a little hiking here to find a spot where we can talk a little bit about the Ascension so I can document for my family and for myself, and also for you to document like what the Ascension is about and why Yeshua's priests should actually be studying this and looking at it and celebrating it. So come with me, we're gonna go find a spot. Okay. Okay, so I don't know if this is the best spot, but I can see a little bit through the trees down into the valley down there. So I'm pretty high up compared to where I was earlier. So today we're going to just talk about the Ascension for a few minutes. And okay, a few minutes might be a little longer than that, but we're going to unpack the Ascension and figure out why it's important for priests of Yeshua to be celebrating it, honoring it, studying it, and setting it apart. So this is gonna get heavy on my head. So there's a false teaching going on right now. Well, in the Melech Tzedek movement, there's a lot of different things that are going on that are not completely biblically correct. But there's one thing that someone sent me a link to a guy who is preaching Melech Tzedek, and I watched just a little bit of it, and within 10 seconds of it, I didn't need to watch any more because you could tell it was TV evangelists, prosperity gospel, all that stuff. But Isaac and I listened long enough to figure out that that it was totally not true, that they were way off, that it wasn't. They weren't preaching the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. What he was teaching was that Yeshua is high priest and king in the Melchizedek order, which is the royal order. And therefore, since we are his Talmudim, his disciples, whatnot, we can claim this kingship authority and wield it. In countering that, I am going to ask you to just really quickly look at Yeshua right now. Is he wielding his kingship right now? Is he operating as a king right now? No, he's not, people. He's not here. He's not taken the world yet and made it his own and put his own government, his own father's government here and stuff. So I just want you to look at the fact that Yeshua himself is not operating right now as a king. Okay, he is the king, yes. The world has been given to him, he holds the title deed, but he is not operating yet as a king. He hasn't put all the governments under his feet yet. He hasn't ruled. He hasn't brought his father's kingdom here yet, and his government. He hasn't taken over yet. And if you don't understand that, you've got your head in the sand, because it doesn't look like he's reigning right now. Otherwise, we would be in a totally different spot. We'd all be going to Jerusalem. His palace would be in Jerusalem. Everybody would be under all the governments would be under his feet. It ain't happened yet. But what he is doing is he's operating as a priest. He's operating as the high priest, the Kohen Gadol of the Melchizedek priesthood, so of the royal priesthood. He is acting as high priest in the order of the Melech Tzedek, okay? So the priests that he is gathering right now, those that are listening to him, those that are responding, those that are obeying. Hey, and this is another thing. These people who are in this room where this guy was preaching Melchizedek, and he was having them recite a prayer that was going to get them basically kingly things. Every single one of these people, I bet, are out of line with the covenant. I bet every single one of them are breaking the law, as in not keeping Shabbat, and they're doing Sunday. I don't know, like, it just looked to me like this mass sea of people who were asking for covenant benefits and asking for this prosperity that isn't here yet for us, demanding almost that they be given that, and yet they are breaking the covenant. How can you ask for benefits if you're not doing what the covenant is telling you or the contract is telling you to do? So that's a side note. Where was I? Okay. Where was I? See, I went off on something now. I don't remember where I was. Oh, yes. So Yeshua is operating right now as Kohen Gadol of this priesthood. And so his priests, us who are being called into this priesthood, into this royal priesthood, and he's rising up a nation of royal priests, right? So we are going to be actually operating as priests right now, not as little kings and queens. We will someday, because we were made to rule, but not yet. So right now we are priests in his priesthood. And what does a priest look like? And what does a priest do? All we have to do to know what a priest looks like and what a priest is supposed to do is to look at what Yeshua did, right? So Yeshua got down on his hands and knees and he washed other people's feet. He was a servant to other people. He obeyed his Father. He gave from himself to everyone else, right? So that's what we have to be doing. He searched. He looked for the lost house of Israel. There were so many things that he did that was on a kind of a servant basis, servant line. That's what a priest does. You know, that's what we're supposed to be doing, is pouring our life out into his kingdom, to build his kingdom and to do what he needs us to do in order to find scattered Israel, to bring Israel back into covenant, back into a relationship with Yahweh, so that they can get to the happily ever after. That's what a priest does right now. Okay, people, we don't go asking for kingly stuff yet, because he's not operating in that. So how could his priests surpass him and begin to operate in that when he's not even operating in that yet? So for me, I think that's a duh. So right now, let's figure out how to serve each other. Let's figure out how to be his priests and do what he does right now. And we'll wait for the reward that's coming. Remember, he said his reward is coming with him. So his reward is going to be so wonderful, and we're going to get that. We're going to get that sort of authority later. He's going to divvy out authority throughout his kingdom to individuals who he wants in charge of certain things. That's great. You know, we're going to rule when he gets here as kings and little queens, but not yet. Okay, so don't stress about that right now. Just stress about how to get to the happily ever after. Stress about what a priest looks like and what a priest is supposed to do. Okay, and it is really clear. If you want, you can get the our little characteristics of Melchizedek priest course is printed now in a little workbook. It's just wonderful to go through. It's just a little questionnaire on, are you operating as a priest? Do you look like what Yeshua wants you to look like what he wants his priest to look like in his priesthood? So you can get that workbook. You can take the online course so that you can discover if you are operating as a priest, okay? Because you ain't going to be operating as a king right now. We're all coming out of Babylon right now, and he's stripping us of everything. It doesn't feel much like royalty, does it? No. He's stripping us of everything. He's taking us to the wilderness so that he can betroth us, and so that he can prove us, and so that he can make us into his priest. So that, what does the priest do? Priest goes out into the world and gets people onto the life raft, people, so that we can help them get to the happily ever after. Then we will get our reward. Do your job well now as a priest, then you'll get the little king, little queen reward, okay? All right, so let's look at the ascension. gonna look a little bit different when I get it up online for you, but it's a PDF you can purchase, or a book, a little spiral bound book that you can purchase to celebrate Ascension Day with, so you can look at what, look along with me and Isaac as to what Ascension Day is all about. Why is it so important for the priests of Yeshua to be celebrating the Ascension? Well, I would like to suggest that it is really important and crucial for Yeshua's Melchizedek priest to understand what was accomplished by his ascension, so that we can work more effectively for the kingdom of Yahweh. Without understanding the ascension and the work that Yeshua did, we can't work effectively for him. There's so much into this feast, and as I say all the time, you really don't need man-made lesson plans. All you have to do is celebrate the feast, follow them throughout the whole year, and there is so many wonderful things that Papa has in store for us to learn and discuss and talk about. Really, that's his lesson plan, is the feast. So here is part of his lesson plan in the course of this year, is to stop and talk about what authority is all about. Who has it, what it's about, what we're supposed to use it for, how to use it, how to get it, all that stuff. So this is beautiful. So let's take a look. I changed locations again. I'll probably have to do it again. But okay, so we're going to find the Ascension. So we look in Acts 1 and verse 2. I'm going to read 1 and 2. It says, in my former book, Theophilus, where is that book? I don't even know. I'd love to see this book. I wrote about all that Yeshua began to do and teach until the day he was taken up into heaven, after giving instructions through the Ruach HaKodesh to the apostles that he had chosen. After his suffering, he showed himself to these men, talking about the apostles, and gave many convincing proofs that he was alive. He appeared to them over a period of 40 days and spoke to them about the kingdom of Yahweh. All right, so after his suffering, First Fruits, after he appeared to the disciples. On the day of First Fruits, in the evening of First Fruits, and then you can count 40 days. So now we know it's 40 days from First Fruits. Now, the question is do we start the counting, the 40 days, with First Fruits, the day of First Fruits, or the day after First Fruits, or the evening of First Fruits? So some people go with the fact that he showed up on the road to Emmaus in the afternoon of First Fruits, and it says that they were disciples of his, but it names those two men, or it names one of them at least, and it's not one of the 12. So you could start the counting on that, on First Fruits. So you could start with that, and that would lead you to a Thursday evening is when he ascended. We choose to look at something else that he says about himself, and in Matthew 12:8 he says, for the Son of Man is Lord of Shabbat, Lord of the Sabbath. So we look at it and go, if he rose at the very end of Shabbat, in the evening of Shabbat. He rose at that point. So right as sunset was coming on Shabbat, he rose. Wouldn't it make a lot of sense if he ascended right before Shabbat came? So be like bookends to Shabbat. You know, he said, I'm Lord of Shabbat, which to say he ascended on a Friday evening, on an Erev Shabbat, and he ascended into Shalom, into peace, into Shabbat, and him and his Father and all of heaven got to celebrate on Shabbat his return to heaven. So we choose to count with the fact that he shows up to the disciples, the ones that he had chosen in the evening of First Fruits. So because he showed up in the evening of First Fruits, it's basically starting the next day. That's when we start our counting. Count it either way you want. You have to, I guess you do have to work for it a little bit to want it to be on Friday evening, but you also have to work for it the other way as well. But we know that he ascended 40 days after he showed himself to his disciples, which was on First Fruits, the day of, or that evening of. We want to see him ascend on Erev Shabbat, so we look and we say, oh, Lord of Shabbat, he must have ascended the beginning of Shabbat because he rose at the end of Shabbat, so the bookends to Shabbat. So for us, that is how we look at it. So, all right, let's go on and talk about the actual event. Okay, so we're going to break this down into two parts again. Number one, he ascends physically, and number two, he ascends in authority. There's two things here to look at in the event of the ascension. One is that he ascended physically, right? He ascended as in he went up, as in his body went up and away into the clouds, right? Into heaven. But the second thing is, and which makes it a very important feast, or it's not a feast, but an important day to remember, is that he ascended in authority on that day. So he ascends in authority. So let's look at those two things. Let's look at the event first. You have in Mark 16, 15 through 20, you see some of the event there. In 19, you see that it says that he sat down on the right-hand side of Yehovah. So he ascends to sit down on the throne next to Yahweh, his Father. In Luke 24, 50 to 51, we see that he was carried up into heaven. In Acts 1, 8 through 11, we see him taken up and he disappears into the clouds. So he's talking to his disciples, he gives the Great Commission, and then he disappears up into the clouds. He rises, and it says that the same way that he has ascended, you will see him return. So there is so much here to look at. It's an amazing, a huge study to think about what all this means and the ramifications for his Talmudim, for his priests. So he ascended. So that means he's gone. Okay, do you catch that? Like when I grew up in Christianity, it was Jesus is here with us. No, he's not actually. He's not here. He ascended, which he's human. Yes, he's divine, but he's human. He can't be in two places at once. He took on the characteristics of being human. And in that humanity, he can't be two places at once. He's gone. He is here through his Ruach HaKodesh, through the Ruach HaKodesh. So he's here with us through the Ruach, but not himself, not physically. He's going to return, remember? So he left so he could return. If he was always here, he wouldn't be returning, now would he? No, so he's actually gone. And for Isaac, when we realized that several years ago, that was a big deal. It actually made him sad to think he's gone. But in the scriptures, it says that he has to go. It was for our benefit that he left. And the benefit is that he couldn't send the Ruach HaKodesh to us until he had left. So he's gone. He's coming back, but he's gone right now. So he ascended and he's gone. So we think it's interesting that each member of the Godhead, all three of them, have had their time here on earth with us. Their special, unique time. So Yahovah was here in the temple, or the tabernacle in the temple among us. He was here for almost 1,500 years. And then Yeshua came, and Yeshua walked with men for almost 29 years. And then the Ruach HaKodesh is here now. So I find it interesting that each of them has had their time here on earth. At least their time to stay for a little while. Not that they haven't come and gone, because we can see that Yeshua showed up earlier. We can see that, the Ruach HaKodesh showed up earlier at different points in time. But the idea of being here to stay for a little bit, each one has had their time to stay for a little bit. So I think that's kind of interesting. I suppose there is a big reason that I don't know of for each one to do that, but perhaps you can discuss among yourself why did each one have to come individually for a time. So in John 16:7-8, Yeshua says that he has to go for the Ruach to come. So why does he have to go so that the Ruach can come? I don't know, discuss that among yourself. And then what does the Ruach do? Okay, so the Ruach is here. What does the Ruach do? The Ruach is preparing us to be the bride. Right, the Ruach is showing us what dress to wear, and you'll have to look at some of my Purim videos to find that out, or celebrate Purim and you'll figure it out. Jim Staley's got some great stuff out there. But the idea is, what dress will please the king? What is it we wear? What do we do that will please the king? That's what the Ruach's job is. So Yeshua had to leave so the Ruach could come. The job of the Ruach is to move us into alignment with Yahovah, to give us the new heart, circumcise our heart to Yahovah, so that we can get that new heart that has His law, His royal, everlasting law of love written on it, and so that we can operate as priests. She convicts us with guilt, so that we can see that, yes, we have been involved in sin, we have broken the covenant, and we need to come back, we need to repent. So she uses guilt for that as well. It says so right there in the scriptures, which Tanis pointed out last night. So he had to leave. It was for our benefit that he left, that he ascended, and he physically left so that the Ruach could come. So with the Ruach HaKodesh here in our hearts, she basically claims our hearts as their temple. This is going to be a place, our hearts, like we talk about during Hanukkah, our hearts are a temple for our God. And so he's going to send the Ruach HaKodesh to live in our hearts and claim our hearts. This temple, they're going to claim it. They're going to clean it. They're going to claim it as theirs. They're going to live in us and through us, and work out their things through us, through our temple. So that's another thing that she's going to do, or she is doing right now. And he had to leave for her to do that. Okay, so now we looked at the fact that he ascended physically. Now let's look at the fact that he ascended in authority, because this is really the part that is going to really affect the way Melchizedek priest operates. So let's look at that for a second. There's a DVD series by John Eldridge that talks about the work of Christ. And he talks about the work of the death of Christ, the resurrection of Christ, and the ascension of Christ. Now, he misses the feasts and stuff like that, but I love how he understands the ascension, because I think it really brings some depth and insight into what Yeshua actually accomplished. And the idea of work. Yeshua had work to do. He had an assignment from Yahovah, and there was work with his death, there was work with his resurrection, with even in the grave there was work, and then there was the resurrection, and there's first fruits, and there was ascension. There is a work that he has done. And what is that work that he has done? So as far as the ascension goes, he has restored authority to human beings. So did you catch that? Has restored authority to human beings by him ascending, by Yehovah bringing him up and seating him right next to himself. Yeshua is a human. and he ascended up and he's sitting on the throne. He's human. Can you get this, people? He's human. Our brother, Yeshua HaMashiach, our bridegroom, the rightful king, he's sitting on the throne right now. Isn't that awesome? A human being. He's restored authority, true authority to human beings, to humanity. Let's look at that. Let's unpack that. In Genesis 1:26, we see that human beings were made to rule. That's what we were. We were not made to rule over each other, which is what we're doing right now, which is Hasatan's kingdom. We were made to rule over creation, over the creatures that Yahweh has made, over creation. Not each other, but creation. But we were made to rule. So what does that mean? What does that look like? What does it look like to rule? What is a kingdom? What does it look like to rule? So I have a definition for you of what it means to rule. To have your will, so to rule means to have your will enacted over that entity. Anytime you make things better or worse with your presence, that is ruling. Okay, so you can make things better, you can make things worse with how you rule. So to rule means to have my will enacted over that entity. So as a mom, I rule over my girls because it's my will that rules. So my will is going to get the upper hand every time over my girls' will. So I'm ruling over them. I can be a good mom or I can be a bad mom. I can rule in a good way or I can rule in a bad way. Okay, so then we need to look at what a kingdom is. So now we know what ruling means. Now let's look at a kingdom because you actually rule over your own kingdom. But let's look at what a kingdom is. A definition for a kingdom is wherever you have authority and wherever your will is done is your kingdom. So wherever you rule and whatever you rule over, that is your kingdom. There are only two overarching kingdoms, okay, people? There is a good kingdom and there is a bad kingdom, the evil kingdom. And your small kingdom is subject to one or the other. You will default to the evil kingdom. You have to choose the good kingdom, okay? So you're ruling over your little kingdom, whether that's just only the fact that you get to put on your own socks every day, whatever your kingdom is, and you're ruling over it, you give your kingdom to one or the other kingdoms. So your small kingdom belongs to one or the other. And you will default to the evil kingdom. You have to choose Yehovah's kingdom to give your small kingdom over to. The small story of your life, you have to give over to his bigger story, or it defaults to Hasatan. Wherever your will is enacted, that is your kingdom, whatever your will is enacted over. So like for us, our kingdom is our little log cabin, our vehicles, our bank account, our children, our animals, extends to our ministry at this point. And your kingdom can be very small or it can be very big. It feels like our kingdom is pretty small, but we're giving that kingdom, our little tiny kingdom, we're choosing to give it to the good kingdom, to Yehovah's kingdom. Now, let's go back to the fall. Let's go back to Adam and Hava, and we have to look at what was lost in order to understand what Yeshua restored and what this ascending into authority is all about. So humans were made to rule. That's what we were created for, one of the things we were created for. And what Adam and Hava had been given was earth to rule over, but they fell and they handed over the title deed to Hasatan. So Adam and Hava lost dominion over the earth when they gave it away. We see that in the scriptures that Hasatan is the prince of this world. It says in John 12:31 that Hasatan is called the prince of the world. It's, you look at the story of Job, and, when Yahweh has got the heads of the other planets, lots of planets coming to him for a meeting, and Hasatan shows up, and Yahweh's like, where'd you come from? And Hasatan's like, from roaming to and fro in the earth. So it's obvious he's coming as the head of this earth at that time. You also look at the Temptations of Yeshua, and you see that Hasatan took him to, I think it was his last temptation, took him to the top of the temple, and he said, hey, I'll give you all these kingdoms. I'll give you everything you see here if you just worship me. So obviously, Hasatan had ownership over something in order to be able to give it away, right? But Yeshua said, no, I'm going to get it, but I'm not going to do it your way. I'm going to do it Papa's way. So here we can see that Adam and Hava had true dominion. They had true rulership over this kingdom, but they took it from the good kingdom and they gave it to Hasatan. So now we have a big problem, because we need to get rulership and authority over earth back into the hands of human beings, because that was, Papa gave earth to humans. He gave it away. That was a gift. So there's true ownership there. They literally had the title deed. Adam and Hava had the title deed to the planet, and they gave it away to Hasatan. So now the issue for Elohim was how to get the title deed to this planet back into the hands of human beings. This is the stage set for the big saga of the plan of redemption. So Hasatan has authority for now over this earth. He's called Prince of the Earth, right? But Yahweh, in his attempt to save humanity, devises this incredible plan, and he actually invades the evil kingdom. As John Eldridge talks about, I love how he talks about it, just invading the evil kingdom. So he invades the evil kingdom by sending his son to have a go at the test that Adam and Hava failed. So remember back in the garden, Adam and Hava failed the test at the tree. Well, Yeshua got taken, in some sense, in a metaphorical reality, got taken back to the tree to redo that test. So through the work of Yeshua, Yahweh disarmed evil's claim on the world by giving the authority of earth back to a human. So Hasatan claimed to have this. He's a demon. He's a demon. He's a fallen angel. He can't own this earth. It was given to humanity. So through Yeshua, the title deed is restored to humanity. So Yeshua said in Matthew 18 or 28:18, he says, so all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. So Yeshua got the authority back. Yeshua ascended to the throne and took his place of rule over heaven and earth, right? So he hasn't been given the okay to come back yet to rule as in a kingship, but he has the title deed in his hands. That's what is in the hands of the Lamb, is that title deed. It's the only one that could hold that title deed, who could take the seals off that title deed in Revelation, is the Lamb, is the one who owns the earth now, the one who paid the price and who got it back, who is the second Adam, is Yeshua. So Hasatan is ruling right now in the sense of he's the prince of the world, because Yeshua hasn't come back. It's kind of like good King Richard, was it, right? And then you had Prince, whatever his name was, who was ruling poorly. What was his name? I can't remember. But everybody wanted good king to come back because the false king, the imposter, was there ruling and making everybody's life miserable. That's the state we're in right now. So, Hasatan is here making everybody's life miserable. It's the imposter, and we want the good king to come back. So in Luke 19:10, it says that the Son of Man came to seek and save that which was lost. So let's look for a second at what was lost. What exactly was lost? Well, the title deed to the planet was lost. Authority, human authority, good, perfect human authority was lost. Paradise was lost. Perfection was lost. The sheep, the 10 tribes were lost. Beauty, strength was lost. The feminine heart and the masculine heart pretty much lost. The glory of the feminine heart and the glory of the masculine heart, that was lost. The light that shone from us, remember, the light that came out of us went away, and that's what made them feel naked. That was lost. And our shalom was lost, and our innocent face-to-face connection with Papa and Elohim was lost. So Yeshua came to seek and save that was lost, that which was lost. He is going to restore what was lost, and one thing that was lost was human authority over this earth. Good human authority. I'm not talking about authority over each other people. I'm talking about the one that owns or is running this planet right now is a demon. So not that Yahweh doesn't work together for good, all those things that, you know, for them that love him. Totally. He will take what Hasatan has done and he will turn it around, and he will make good come out of it for those that love Yahweh, love him. But in the long run, this isn't paradise, and so we're waiting for that. So I find it really, really cool to think about the idea that Yeshua was taken back to the tree, to that moment when Adam and Hava failed that test. So that's why that's one reason he's called the second Adam, is that he got to take that test over that Adam and Hava failed. That to me is really cool. And the idea that he's a human being, people. He's a human being on the throne. Yes, he's divine. Absolutely, he's Elohim. But he's also human, and I don't think we sit with that long enough to remember that he took on humanity. He became the second Adam, and he ascended to the right hand of Papa. Oh my, hello, that is just like, it's your brother. Your brother is sitting there on the throne. Whoa, I think that is so amazing. I think that is the coolest thing in the entire story. I think that's just, it blows my mind. It makes me cry, it makes me weep for joy, it makes me rejoice, it makes me just tingle all over, because my brother is on the throne. Since he's on the throne, and my brother, and he loves me, and my Papa? What can man do to you? I mean, my brother is on the throne. The real, true royalty. Oh my, people. Kind of where you're at with stuff, but how does this new understanding help you? If you see what I'm seeing, how does this change how you've been perceiving what Papa is up to this point? You know, does it change how you view what he's been doing to rescue you? It totally rocks. It totally changed my perception, because there's so much that had to come into play. There's so much strategy that was involved to get this to happen, and the plan is so amazing and so beautiful. I never heard this sitting in a pew at church. I never heard the whole story like this. I never knew any of this. I mean, I knew pieces of it, parts of it, verse here, verse there, kind of out of context, but I never understood it as a story. I never understood, you know, what truly the plan of redemption was, and what it really cost, and how it worked. But now we see how it's working, and it totally blows your mind, doesn't it? So I hope that it really changes the way you view Papa's heart towards you, because his heart towards you is really good. It is good. It's love. And he has done all of this in order to save you and get you onto the boat off the Titanic. So you have what's called effective will. It's called the dignity of causality. And so Papa really truly believes in free will. He loves you so much that he wants to give you and all of creation, including the angels, he gives true free will. That means you're not predestined. Yes, you're predestined in the sense of Israel's predestined, to be the chosen, and to the idea of predestined as in, yes, I want you to come to the great wedding feast, but you're not predestined as in he's already made your choices for you. He already knows every single choice you're going to make. He knows you so well that he probably knows what you're going to choose, but you have the opportunity to surprise him. So it's called the dignity of causality. And if you want to read about it, Greg Boyd is like amazing. He's got an amazing insight to what the dignity of causality is all about, and free will, and the foreknowledge of Papa, and what he knows as settled, some things as settled, and some things as not settled. So your effective will. So all human beings have been created with effective will, or the dignity of causality. This includes the ability to bring into reality things that are not the will of Yehovah for a time, which we see in the story of Lucifer and the whole fall of man, right? The scriptures makes it clear that not everything happens for a reason, and not everything is orchestrated by Papa. Okay, this is really important to understand. Of course, he can turn anything around, like I said, to work out for good for those that love him, and for his purposes, but that does not mean that his will was initially done, or that the entities he created did not cause him to have to go on a tangent to bring things back to his original plan, which we see in the Levitical priesthood. That was a bridge from the first contract to the second contract. So we see Israel taking Papa on many tangents. Human beings have taken him on a lot of different paths and he's been bringing them back to his original plan, So we can do that as human beings as well with our own personal story. But I think effective will is really important to consider at this time when you're looking at your kingdom, what you rule over, and which entity or which dominion, which kingdom you give your little kingdom to. So effective will. Important to think about at this time of year. So now we get to the heart of the Ascension and what it means for Yeshua as Melech Tzedek priest, because he gives his authority to his priest. This is what is so amazing about this day, is that, remember, he was raised and ascended to the right hand side of Yehovah on the throne of the king of the Melech Tzedek. Here is our brother sitting right next to him. He ascends in authority, but we as his bride-to-be, as his priests, we have been seated with him. In Ephesians 2:6, let me just read that one to you, and then I'll put a bunch of other verses up here for you to look at. But Ephesians 2:6, and Yahweh raised us up with Yeshua and seated us with him in the heavenly realms in Yeshua HaMashiach. So we, through Yeshua, get to rule with him, sit with him on the throne. We're raised up with him. We're seated with him. So Yeshua is sitting there on the throne, but hello, talk about a generous Elohim, creator, our brother. They invite us to sit there with him. Wow. So let's look at what that means. Does that mean that we get to have everything we want and do anything we want and serve ourselves and the prosperity gospel and self-preserve and feed ourselves and take care of only ourselves? No, that's not what that means at all. So let's look and see what it means to be seated with Yeshua on the throne. So the scriptures say that we have been raised with him to life and in authority, though not fully yet, obviously. We are seated with him on the throne. We will rule in our fullness forever. We will come and take our inheritance, the kingdom. So Yeshua shares his authority with his Melchizedek priests. His priests have been given authority and can bring the power of his kingdom into their lives and into the world around them. It has been given for our benefit and for the glory of Yahweh. So we need to look at who is he given his power to, and what did he give us authority over, actually. He gives us his authority to bring the evil kingdom down. So do you remember the little story of Yeshua sends his 70 out? It's kind of like a trial run. So he sends his 70 out to see if it works, to see if his disciples can bring the evil kingdom down, and it worked. Do you remember in Luke 10:19, Yeshua says, I have given you authority over the power of the evil one. Yes, you are going to need his authority to do the Great Commission. So in Matthew 28:18, he says, Yeshua came and spoke to his disciples, all power and authority has been given to me in heaven and earth, and then go and teach all nations to carry out all the things that I have commanded you forever. So he says, all authority has been given to me, now go. So it's almost like he's saying, here's my authority, I'm giving it to you, now go and run and do the Great Commission. So in the end, when Yeshua comes back, we will, get to operate as little kings and little queens with, authority that feels like authority, I guess. But what this day is so wonderful and so important to talk about is that what it looks like right now to take authority in the way that Yeshua wants us to take authority as his priest is basically get on your knees. Get your life into alignment with him. Keep the commandments, keep the covenant, know which contract you're under, and there's only one contract to be under, and that's the new Melech Tzedek contract, that's going to help you keep the royal law, and get on your knees and command the evil away. And that is basically what the priest is going to look like right now when you are taking authority over Hasatan's kingdom. The kingdom is made up of people. So when Yeshua says go out and preach the kingdom and whatnot, he's talking about, in the Great Commission, he's talking about, get scattered Israel, find scattered Israel, his kingdom. It's a king. And there's a kingdom. There's no king if there's no kingdom, right? And there's no kingdom if there's no king. So you have to have both. And he's saying, help me look for my kingdom. Help me find scattered Israel. So part of the Great Commission is to go out and find scattered Israel and bring them back into alignment with Papa. With the layout of the tabernacle and how a priest would move and be taught how to operate as a priest. You don't just waltz into the most holy place and say, hello, here I am, Papa, take my offering. No, you have to learn how to operate in there. You have to go through the wilderness. You have to get trained by Papa. There's all kinds of things. You got to learn some stuff, unlearn some stuff, get yourself into alignment with him, and then you will begin to operate in the holy place, where you start to learn with the the table of showbread, and you start learning how to operate as a priest, and then you get to operate in the most holy place and teach others how to operate as priests and stuff. So you don't just bust in there and hey, hello, here I am. No, you've got to get yourself in alignment, and then he's going to give his authority to you in order to wield well for him. Wield your sword well for him, right? Okay, so what do we use his authority for? Well, the scriptures tells us we use it as warfare to cast out foul spirits. Yeshua did, our high priest, our Kohen Gadol, did this all the time, right? He didn't look at somebody and said, oh, hey, you have epilepsy, let's send you to the hospital and have neurosurgery done on you. No, he said, there's an evil spirit in you, out, and the person was healed, right? So most diseases have basically an evil spirit is the problem. And so we get to use his authority to cast those things out. How neat if we could learn how to do that, people. We use his authority to command wholeness, which is on the same level, right? Not just wholeness of like wellness kind of thing, but wholeness of mind and body, right? And all the things that Yeshua got to do, he said we get to do, and he even said we do greater things than him, which I can't possibly imagine how that is possible, but he said so. We also get to exercise our lordship, if you want to say it that way, over our own realm, our own kingdom, and walk in the authority of the Ascension to bring his will into our kingdom, right? And we do that. We say that we pray the Avinu prayer, which is what how he taught us to pray, which is Yahovah, may his will be done. May Papa's will be done. His will be done on earth as it is in heaven, right? So the Avinu prayer. So bringing his kingdom brings restoration on some level here on this side of the return of the king. His authority is passed on to his priests to bring the effective will of the Father, of Yahovah, to earth and to heaven. So pray that Yah's will is done in heaven and on earth, and thank him that it will be done, because it is going to be done no matter what. You get to choose whether you bring evil's will or you bring Papa's will, because there are only two kingdoms, remember. Okay, so just a couple more things here before we close this Ascension Basics teaching. Let no one but Yeshua rule over you. Okay, so you have, as a Melech Tzedek priest, you have only one ruler, and that is Elohim. So Yeshua is our Kohen Gadol, and he is over us. So we have but one ruler, and that is Yeshua HaMashiach. So you should be succumbing to no religious entities. No churches, no organized structure, no religion is over you. It's only Yeshua. This is what makes this priesthood a priesthood and not a denomination. As Nolan says, it's a priesthood, not a religion. So there is no religious authorities that are over you when you come into this priesthood, and when you accept Yeshua as your high priest and begin to operate as a Melchizedek priest. He's your only authority, and he will judge you. No religious authority. Okay, that's really cool. What about the authorities of the world and the governments? Well, right now we're under their thumb, but we're not under their thumb in our minds or our hearts. Yeah, we have pagan governments around us all the time that give us, you know, that control and do horrible things and stuff. And Yeshua is going to put them under his feet when he returns as king. So then he will be our authority there, but he hasn't claimed that yet. So at this point, we choose our battles wisely. Let's figure out how to do what he told us to do, and let him be our Kohen Gadol and obey him, and worry about the governments later when he comes to abolish them and judge them. Also, I want you to remember that priests are in training. Remember how I talked about my friend Diane's idea of or how she was seeing the tabernacle, layout of the tabernacle and stuff? We're in training, okay? So don't give up. Remember the story when Yeshua sent out the disciples, or the disciples actually tried to heal the boy with the demon and tried to get the demon out of the boy, and it didn't work, and the father had to finally bring the boy to Yeshua to do it. We're in training, all right? So don't be hard on yourself. Don't think you need to be in the most holy place working and operating there before you are trained to do that, all right? So take heart. And on that note, not only take heart, but also don't try to do something that you're not authorized to do. This is a big one. As far as we do not have full authority yet. Only Yeshua does, right? And Yeshua has full authority. We don't. So there are some things that we are not authorized to do. Not every ministry is authorized, people. Not every priest is authorized to teach or speak on every single subject. You know, we see a lot of teachers out there who seem to be anointed with a couple things, one or two things, three things maybe, that are like You can tell they're anointed to speak that they have the ruach in them on that subject, but there are other things that they're leading everybody astray on. Just be careful and know that not everybody is authorized to be speaking on every single subject. When there is a teacher who has to come up with a sermon every single week, and it has to be new in order to hold their audience, they have to have the new cutting thing or the new understanding of it, and they're trying to keep their audience, because on some level they're turning it into a business, and we don't want that. We want what Papa has to say through them to us, and we're gleaning from people. And not every single person can speak on every single subject. They don't know every single subject perfectly. So be careful when you're out there listening to preachers and stuff and people talking about this, and shepherds. There are some good ones, there's some bad ones, there's some that really understand certain subjects and they don't have a clue about other subjects, but they're talking about it anyway, and they shouldn't be. So one other thing is that we need to chat about just for a second is don't lay an offering on an unsanctified altar. Okay, so when you give First Fruits offering or a Shavuot offering or whatnot, don't lay it on an unsanctified altar. Do you know what I mean? What is an unsanctified altar? Really think about that and be careful where you lay your offerings. Believe it or not, other gods appreciate, accept, and reward offerings, and those are basically to unsanctified altars. So this is what I'm talking about. So other gods still hold positions of authority. The scene in Revelation where there is a war in heaven and Hasatan is cast down is still a future event, actually. Hasatan and other fallen angels still hold seats or positions in the heavenly council. These gods have realms of authority and possess the authority to bless human beings, human authorities, and human governments. So we see several instances of this in the scripture. You see the seventh seal in Revelation as being a time of 30 minutes, space of 30 minutes of quietness in heaven and shalom, and that's because Hasatan got kicked out. And he got shut up. He's gone. So we know it's a future event. But just quickly, examples of rewards that other gods give. You have the God of achievement. He blesses worshipers with careers, success, status, travel, money, recognition, and a sense of monetary security. Okay, so you have the God of achievement. You have the God of comfort, who blesses its worshipers with a house in a subdivision, 2 cars in the garage, job security, food in the fridge, and a TV in each room. Basically a happy life, happy little life, and a sense of physical stability and security. So remember, there's a God of comfort. There is also the God of religion, who blesses its worshipers with a sense of eternal security, a place to belong and a sense of belonging, guilt relief, a to-do list, fellowship, promise of a future blessings, guidance, and someone to tell you what to do. So what gods are you serving to get a reward? Just remember that there are other gods that bless their people, and it looks like it's from Papa, but it's not. Okay, it's not. When you start walking this path and you start coming into covenant and start obeying the commandments and whatnot, it may not look very good. Okay, you may lose everything. You may be homeless and jobless and whatnot. He's going to take you into the wilderness to prove for a time of proving and testing. And Yeshua said that his reward is going to come with him. So it doesn't mean that his reward is coming now. So you need to be careful. If you're feeling a lot of reward right now, really look at it and say, am I in line with him? Because I have a feeling that it's, not going to look like we're used to things looking, like success and happiness and the way that we are used to it looking. It's going to look differently. It's going to be happiness down here, deep down, joy that passes all understanding. and our reward is in heaven, not here. We're going to build up our kingdom there, not here, you know. So what does he say? Put up things in heaven that rust and moth do not destroy, kind of thing. The thief doesn't break in and steal. So you're going to be building stuff for the kingdom, not for yourself. So if you're looking all, sitting all pretty and happy, rethink, look again, and make sure you're in line. I'm not saying he doesn't bless that way either. There are a great many people who are needed, who have financial, you know, wealth that he's given in order to do kingdom things, absolutely. So I'm not saying that, but going back to the authority thing for a minute, original authority was unconditional. Original authority was unconditional to all. Yahweh didn't take away our authority when we sinned at the fall. The fall drastically changed Elohim's lives. Yahweh has to contend with the true authority he bestowed to angels and humans. So true grace empowers us to move out from under Hasatan's authority and move into being under Yeshua's authority. So if original authority was given unconditionally and human beings fell, but the authority is still there, then could it be that people have access to that authority even if they're not in covenant, or even if they're not aligned properly with Yehovah? I almost think so, because just look at what Yeshua says right here. He says in Matthew 7:21-23, it says, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord,' shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that does the will of my Father in heaven. Many will say to me in the day of judgment, 'Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, and in your name have we not cast out demons? And in your name have we not done many good works?' And then Yeshua is going to turn to them and said, 'I pronounce a verdict on you that I have never knew you. Depart from me, you violator of the Torah.'" So it looks right there like people still will have, that people will have access to the authority of Yeshua, or the authority that was given people in the beginning, and they're going to use it in ways that are not pleasing to Papa. So anyway, just consider that and make sure that you're not one of those, okay? I may have not said it properly, but you know what I'm talking about. So as Yeshua is ascending, he has some final instructions for his priests. And basically he says, "Tarry in the city in Yerushalayim until you are endued with power on high." So he's saying tarry and wait for the Feast of Shavuot, which is next weekend. So they're supposed to wait until and stay there until the power comes, which is the gift, which is the Ruach HaKodesh. And he gives the Great Commission as he leaves. So take this into all the world. So our high priest, as he was ascending up into heaven, his last words to his royal priest was to show up for Shavuot to receive the Ruach HaKodesh. There you go. And to take this into all the world, to take the good news into all the world, right? One last thing as I close this out, and that is, how do you celebrate the Ascension? How do you walk your family into remembering this day? Well, for us, we go on a little, like I said at the beginning here, we go on a little hike. So about evening time, 5 o'clock or so, we get a whole bunch of friends, and we have a specific location that we go every year, but we take a little picnic lunch with us, a special picnic lunch actually, and then we have a blanket, some jackets if it gets cool at night. But we leave at about 5 o'clock and we hike up the mountain to sit on top of a hill and overlook the city, just kind of imagining what was going on that evening when he ascended with the spread a blanket, picnic lunch, or picnic dinner. We bring our scriptures and the little handbook that I have, some pins, and a little jacket. And then we discuss. We pray a lot. We pray at the beginning, pray at the end. And we discuss what we've been talking about right here on this basics video. One of the other things that was suggested last night from Seth, which I think would be really cool, is if we got like a helium balloon and let it go. Because I was trying to describe to the kids what it meant to ascend, like to lift up and to go away that way. So maybe next year we will get a little helium balloon and let it go. So one of the things that we have chosen to do this year, and something we'll do from now on, is I was trying to explain to the girls how we have his ring of power. And I was like, well, let's get rings of power. So we did. So we got little rings of power, and so today on Ascension Day we're going to wear our little ring of power, and just to help put into the minds of our kids the fact that we can use his power to do his things, to make the demons go away, and to bring the Ruach HaKodesh, to bring his kingdom here where we are, into our kingdom. So we get to surrender our kingdom, our little kingdom, to him, and we get to wield Yeshua's authority as his priest. We get to wield his authority on the earth. So here you go. I hope that you have enjoyed listening to me about the Ascension and how wonderful it is, and what a great time it is to mark as his priest. So I hope that you choose to do that. May you learn how to be a priest of Yeshua. May you choose him. May you choose the Father's way. May you get your life in line with him so that you can operate as a priest and someday as a little king, right? May you wait in Jerusalem to show up for the Feast of Shavuot next week, and may you seek the Ruach HaKodesh, because I would love to know that your heart, the temple of you in your heart, because you are a temple, that it has been turned over to be a temple for the only living, true God, your creator, Yahweh Elohim. And may you operate and learn to operate as a priest full of love for your fellow man, for your fellow Israelites, full of love for Yahovah and for Yeshua and all the work that he did. It's just so amazing what he did. You just gotta, sit with this. There's nothing else to do today but sit with this idea of authority and what he ascended into, what he invites us into as his priests, and what he is wanting us to do with his authority. So may you have eyes to see and ears to hear. And I'll see you next time. I'm going to